Good evening, everyone. I have finished grading all of your reports in Typhon and have also graded your vulnerability cycle exercise that you posted in Blackboard. Feedback for your Typhon log, there is a grade in the rubric, but the detailed feedback you're going to find where your Typhon log is loaded under your external documents. Just some notes about your Typhon work. Make sure that before you post your external document that has your daily logs, that you enter all of your clinical time in your practicum time log. If you have trouble with that, Faith Sterling is the contact person to help walk you through that process. But for every day that you are there in the clinical setting, you should have a day entered into the time log. So let's say you went to clinical practicum time on Friday and it was January 30th and you went for 5 hours. You should have an entry in your time log for that day for 5 hours, and there should be a corresponding page in your log that goes along with that day. Each of the log files contains 8 individual sheets, so in one log file, you should be able to fit 8 days. Please use one log for all the days that you've completed during this during that grading period. When you get ready to start log number 2, start a fresh log. So open up a second file that again has 8 blank pages and fill in a log completely for each page. When I go into grade, I open up your time log and then I open up your written practicum log, and I make sure that the time you said you were in a practicum, that you have a corresponding day filled log completed that corresponds with those times. I do that to make sure that you're where you say you're supposed to be. Also to make sure from an auditing standpoint that our accreditors know that our students, if they say they're somewhere, we have evidence that they were actually there. There is lots of information on Blackboard that guides you through your time, through your practicum log paperwork, but I want to hit some highlights and make sure that you remember this. For each day, you're going to complete a log, a page in your log. And again, each log has 8 blank pages that you can use. So in your objective section, you need to make sure that you specify which goal and which objective you worked on for that day. Now, your original goals and objectives may have had 6 goals and lots of individual objectives. I only want you to put the objectives and the goals that you addressed that day. So it may be 2 or 3, it may just be 1, depending on what you did during that time. Your next box, which is supportive narrative. The information that goes into supportive narrative are the logistics of the day. What did you do? Where did you do it? Who did you do it with? What were your experiences? The other component that needs to go in there are the reflections. Think about how you felt about what happened. What concerns did you have? This is where you put your aha moments. This is where you document that you watched an exchange between 2 colleagues and you noticed that they were not using effective communication, and you saw a leader intervene and you thought that that was a good leadership step. Just an example. Your aha moments, your things that you learned, all of that should go in the supportive narrative section. And all of these should tell me how they all connect to your goals and objectives. Your last box is the application box. And this is the box that tells me how everything in your supportive narrative section helps you accomplish the ANA scope and standards. You need to tell me exactly which scope and standard that you accomplished, or not accomplished, but maybe worked on, cite it, and then you also need to make sure that you discuss it. How did going to meetings or following your preceptor or engaging with patients, how did that accomplish this specific ANA scope and standard? And at the end of each page, you need to cite any references you used. The ANA scope and standard should be on every page, but you may also find other resources and other things that you're going to cite, which is perfectly fine. But at a minimum, the ANA scope and standards needs to be cited. The objective of your practicum experience, just to refresh your memory, is for you to polish your skills in becoming an advanced practitioner. The book, the ANA scope and standards, notice that it's flagged. This is the book that tells us that you are following the footprint of a professional nurse leader. So this scope and standards for nursing leadership is the tool you were supposed to use when you crafted your goals and objectives. So in that application box, this is the evidence that you're working toward accomplishing the patterns that are expected for an advanced practice nurse leader. If you have questions about that, touch base, let me know, and we'll work through that. Moving on to your vulnerability exercises, that assignment was designed to make things easier for you. It was legitimately just an outline. For those of you that got the outline, I hope it was a good experience. The idea was for you just to kind of bang out some ideas, provide a general summary, and move on. So one of the things that I thought that you all covered really well and I was really interested in were additional strategies for vulnerability. Your book talks about communication and syndication as being primary components of creating a vulnerability, a situation where vulnerability is invited. Some of you came up with some very with your third some creative ideas. Winnie talked about authentic leadership and how that allowed vulnerability to be invited in. Sandra talked about the requirement for being self-aware or conducting a self-assessment so that you were aware of your own interpersonal relationships and whether you cultivated a vulnerable environment so people felt safe with you. And I think that's an important step that others hadn't addressed. The last one I want to mention is the one that Virginia, your classmate, mentioned. And she talked about being willing to take risks, and followed that up with saying that not only should we, by taking risks, do we become vulnerable, but it opens us up to failure. And when we can embrace failure, that really opens us up to vulnerability. And I think that's a fantastic idea. She talked about courage and how important it was to be courageous to fail. And how often we kind of stay in our own little bubble and we try not to do brave things and we try not to do things that are scary. Sometimes it's out of time. Sometimes it's just because of our own anxiety or fear of failure. But I so believe that we do need to embrace risk. We need to do it, and then we need to accept that failure is a part of risk. So I appreciate those insights. From an APA standpoint, the only thing I want to mention is I'm seeing consistent errors when you're doing in-text citations for 3, 4, and 5 authors. So I'm going to hit the highlights for you. If you have a citation that has 3, 4, or 5 authors, the first time you use that citation, you cite all of those authors. Put a comma and then the date. The second and subsequent uses of those same author, you only use the first name and then you do et al. And then the date. That's different than if you have 6 or more. In that case, in 6 or more, you only cite the first author et al. Through all iterations. Make sure that you go back through and review that, especially if I've reminded you, hey, go look at that, because it is different. Okay, I think that is it. We have had the actual flu in my house. My husband got swabbed today and he is flu positive. So be very glad you're over there, not here, because things are germy here. I hope you guys are warm and well. And if you're in my neck of the woods, you know that there has been snow and nasty ice. So I hope wherever you are safe. Let me know how I can help you as you go through your feedback. If you have questions or concerns, touch base, give me a call or email me, and then we'll try to set up a time to call because I'm not on campus at my office number. So know that I'm here and I'm praying for you. I hope you guys are well. Take care.